Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have CoTec. It trades on the TSXV under the symbol CTH and is an ESG-focused company ready to invest in innovative technologies that fundamentally change the way metals and minerals can be extracted and processed. They are committed to supporting the transition to a lower carbon future for the extraction industry, a sector on the cusp of a green revolution as it embraces technology and innovation. Please welcome its President and CEO, Julian Treger. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you all for tuning in to watch this introduction to CoTec. We're super excited about this company. We think that it is the answer to the way in which mining and commodity extraction companies need to adjust for the 21st century, and we think it's a model as to how we can create a responsible and green business which can use revolutionary and disruptive technologies to build a real large operating business with a very low carbon footprint. Just to quickly introduce myself, I am the President and CEO. I have previously built a number of businesses in the natural resources space, which have grown into multi-billion-dollar businesses, which have been realized. And this is what I'm dedicating largely the next decade of my career to, because I think it's a super exciting way to be part of the future and the way to bring technology into the commodity space. We haven't had a Tesla, an eBay, or an Amazon. We haven't used technology until now in a really fundamental way to create new business models in the space. I think CoTec is the future and the way in which this is going to develop. So if I just flip forward to the first page of our presentation, as we mentioned, we are listed on the TSXV, but we are also in the process of getting an OTC listing. So this will allow US investors more easily to invest in the company. We have a very experienced team of management and board of directors who represent, in a way, the scale of the ambitions of the business to become ultimately a multi-billion-dollar business, operating assets in a very green way, and we'll talk about that later. And we started around a year ago, where we took control of a shell company with $90 million of tax losses, which we can use, by the way, to shield the gains that we're making, and we're already making gains and producing profits. And in that time, we've also taken stakes in 2 businesses. We have commitments to a third, and we're in advanced discussions with regards to another 2 technologies. So we're well on our way to realize the vision we have for CoTec. All the technologies we look at are revolutionary. They don't have a lot of competition. We try and buy them at an interesting valuation. We try and work with very impressive management. And they really have to be scalable and have to move the dial in changing the way in which the world extracts commodities. And lastly, they need to have asset applications, because the model for CoTec is to start with technologies and algorithms, but ultimately to become a large asset operating business in the same way that an Amazon started with technology, but then became very large physically. So we'll talk later about the significant investments we've got, but the first one is a world leader in cold agglomeration to make the pellets for green steel. So it's a green steel business. The second one is a restart of an iron ore processing facility in the Midwest, which can use the technology to make green steel. And both of those investments have gone up a lot. And the third, which is super exciting, particularly for North America and the US, is to recycle used magnets and extract the rare earths from that, in a very green way. That's already started to be executed in Europe, but we have the right to bring it to the US. With all the technologies we invest in, we do seek to get particular rights, particular licenses, particular ability to take the technology and use it for assets. That's a very important part of our model. And the best way of making money in the commodity extraction space is to buy cheap. So the idea is to get investments in technologies which aren't very expensive yet, but have the opportunity to become very large, and then to apply those technologies to assets in the space which are effectively considered othered. They're not really highly valued. They are, marginally profitable. They may be marginally loss-making. They may be on care and maintenance. They may be restart opportunities. And a very large aspect of our strategy is to focus on waste, recycling technologies, which can allow what are considered to be liabilities to become assets. And we think in this way, we will be able to produce quite quickly the commodities which the world needs for this energy transition much more quickly. To start a mine, to develop a mine, to bring it into production can take 10 to 20 years. The world doesn't have the time for that. As you can see on this page, there are significant challenges. CoTec provides a solution to such challenges. The technologies we're involved with use much less heat, they use much less water, they are much cheaper, and they're much more flexible in terms of the way in which they can be implemented than historic ways of doing things. And these all are important solutions that the world needs now to develop the opportunities and the tech and extract the commodities which we are all needing to make the targets for climate emissions. I fear that the traditional way of doing things isn't going to get us there. But opportunities presented by CoTec and the commodities and that we will be extracting will come to fruition within 2-3 years on average, rather than 10 to 15 years. And that's really going to make a huge difference to the way in which we cope with the challenges globally. So I hope you understand from this how excited we are about the business and about the potential for it. So if I move to the next slide, which is all about strategy. As I mentioned, we acquire stakes in technologies which we think are world leaders and disruptive. We apply those technologies to these marginalized, cheaper assets. And those technologies then can make those assets more valuable because they improve their economics significantly. We focus on safe jurisdictions, and we are looking at working in partnership with lots of other parties. So one of the cultural aspects of CoTec is to succeed to address the challenges that we face globally. Our view is we need to work collectively. Historically, commodity extraction companies have operated in a siloed way and competed with one another. We're much more interested in open architecture, in sharing technologies and licensing technologies, in collaborations and partnerships. And we think that together we'll be stronger and we'll get to the place we need to be globally more rapidly. And that lastly leads to building an innovative, scalable business. We really seek over time to create a green alternative to mid-tier commodity extraction businesses with assets in multiple jurisdictions. And we think that that's the route that we will achieve more rapidly using technology. So this again just looks at the way in which we are using disruptive technologies, creating joint ventures, evaluating projects, and moving to revenues. We think that CoTec, as you can see, is already targeting green and copper and green cement in new disruptive technologies we're looking at. We have a number of assets and joint ventures. We're involved now in evaluating projects to make those asset rich. And we think that we'll come into a revenue opportunity situation within 2 to 3 years, so much, much quicker than historical commodity extraction businesses. And you can see that, again, reiterated on this slide. Normally, conventional mines take a long time. 10 years can be short. We think that in our case, we'll be in a revenue position within 2 to 3 years. We've evaluated so far 250 different technologies, and we've, as I said, invested in 3, and we have another 2 in the pipeline. So we are super picky, and as you can see later in the presentation, we do so in large part because we are investing our own capital. So, you know, every dollar we invest, the board effectively is investing 2/3 of its own capital. So in addition to myself, we have a prominent operating management team and then non-executives. Bram Jonker, I've worked with for many years. He's well experienced in the Canadian commodity investment business. John Singleton, our Chief Operating Officer out of London, has great experience and track record with Anglo American and Rio Tinto, amongst others. And Eugene Herken runs the day-to-day finance and corporate development function in Vancouver. And then we have a great board, the chairman of whom is Lucio Genovese, who is also previously had run the copper business of Glencore and has been involved in many entities with myself over the decades. We have Tom Albanese, who's one of the great and the good, one of the stellar lights of the commodity sector, having been the CEO of Rio Tinto. We have Sharon Fay, who was the CIO of AllianceBernstein, which is a huge fund management business. So these are, and of course, we also have John Conlon, who's a well-experienced mining investor, Margot Nodi, who used to invest in the mining space for the Canadian Pension Plan and is well known in Toronto. And then we have John McGarr, who's globally considered one of the best technical consultants, having previously run Rio Ventures. So, you know, these are world-class individuals who I think are indicative of the ambitions of the business. And since we started, we've made a number of investments which have gone up a lot in value, such that we believe that today the company trades at around half of its true valuation, without even taking into account the potential value of a lot of the rights which we've obtained. And you know, we have a number of other steps to take as we continue to execute and move the business to roll out its asset technology. The business has around 50 million shares in issue. The market cap is around $25 million. And then there's a couple of warrants outstanding. And the management and the board, as I say, have 65%. I and my interests, are above 40%. And we have all these tax losses, which we're starting now to generate as we make gains. So perhaps I should just spend 5 minutes talking through the things that we've done to give you a better sense of what we're looking at. Our first investment was in the world leader for a patented binding technology to make the pellets for steel. Normally, those require induration plants. They're done at 1200 degrees centigrade, have a huge carbon footprint. Ours are done at room temperature. Globally, if this technology was implemented, it would save on its own 1% of global carbon emissions. We invested in the business at a $70 million valuation. A big Japanese trader invested $130 million, and the company is now in advanced discussions and has a term sheet from another party at $200 million. So within a year, the valuation will have gone up 3x. We haven't reflected this yet because we're waiting for this next transaction to close. We've made a big gain on the investment, and we have the right to continue to follow on and invest at discounts to the current pricing. So there's more profit contained within the CoTec agreement. And as you can see here, 95% yes energy usage, 98% less carbon emissions. This really is a way in which the world can be changed. But very interestingly, the technology can also be used to take waste, to take metallic fines, reprocess them, and extract the metallic content from those, which I think is super exciting. Those that waste isn't considered very valuable, but can be turned into a mini mine. And CoTec has the right to apply this in a number of jurisdictions. Each one of these waste plants, if they came to fruition, would create more profits than the current market cap of CoTec. So there's huge upside in these rights, and we are discussing this with a number of parties now in Canada and Europe. So watch the space for more news. The next investment is, again, also revolutionary. It's this green process using hydrogen, which can take used magnets and extract the rare earths from them and then reuse the rare earths. And obviously, magnets and rare earths are a hot topic. The West is very dependent upon China. This business, like all our businesses, is not at laboratory stage. It's well beyond that. There's already a pilot plant that started in the UK, funded by the UK government. The German government and the EU are building a second plant because all these countries are super excited about the potential for this business for security. And we have the right, as well as owning a big stake in the technology, to take the technology to North America on a joint venture basis with Macango. And the models suggest that each plant would cost around $15 million, but would have an NPV of around $80 million. So there's huge upside, and we are looking to build 3 plants in North America over the next couple of years. We think this will be super interesting to the US government, and again, has enormous upside for CoTec. And then we also have a large investment in a iron ore processing plant and facility in Minnesota. We own 16% of it, and it has an NPV of about $1 billion. It will need some funding to get up and running. Glencore has come in to the business at a big gain on our current cost, and we're talking to another party, as it says there, for funding at over $100 million, in which case our 16% ownership alone would already be worth $16 million US, which is almost the market cap of the business. And this again could be an input for a green steel in the Midwest. And then we're looking at a number of other themes, a revolutionary base metal leaching technology that can extract base metals much faster and better than competitors. Alternative solutions are very highly valued. This has an interesting valuation, and we can really help the technology to scale. We're also talking about green cement, and then green iron ore for 3D printing, and very excited about graphite and graphene and the applications for that. So we're looking at large categories where we can really make a difference and take the business to another level. Each of the technologies, by the way, once they are scaled, can be IPO'd or acquired, and we expect the shareholders of CoTec to end up with a stream of dividends or cash or in specie stock in the technologies, while CoTec retains the right to those technologies for its large asset base, which we will be developing over the next few years. So in conclusion, we think there's a real unique opportunity to get in early to what we believe will be the model for the commodity extraction business of the future. We have a very competent leadership team. We have a long track record. We have global connections. We can assess these technologies. For shareholders, you know, we've effectively already looked at 250 and chosen the best 5. And we think the business is undervalued and has enormous upside. And so, you know, I'm putting my money where my mouth is and putting my time even more valuably to this, because I think it's super exciting and a way in which we can, at the nexus of technology, green investing, impact investing, critical minerals, energy transition, and we can do something which helps the world, but also makes a lot of money for our shareholders. And with that, I think I will hand back to Anna to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Julian. Yes, we have some questions. We have a question from Gary Reeves. He says, good morning from the UK, an indirect investor in one of the CoTec Holdings companies. So he has a few questions. I'm going to break them down. The first one, what plans do you have in the US for manganito in regards to rare earth recycling? And do you believe you can secure grants to support a pilot plant or multiple pilot plants in the US?
So absolutely. I mean, when we were talking about rolling out the magnet recycling business, that this is all around hypermag and magneto. We are, first of all, trying to decide in which states we would build the plants. And once we've worked that out, where the best feed for the recycling comes from, then we will start engaging more with the US government. But we've had very good initial indications of interest from the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense, and others. But we just need to get more granular, and the plan is to do so in the next 6 months.
Thank you for that. His second question is in regards to partners for U.S. rare earth projects. Are you in discussions with any auto manufacturers that would be interested in securing a future supply of commercial NdPr or neodymium, the critical mineral for EV motors?
So again, I think we want to have a tangible plan. We will need capital to build these plants. And at that stage, we are going to be engaging more with the OEMs. But we've already been speaking to the advisors to the OEMs, and we're lining them up for those eventual discussions.
Wonderful. Third question, what is the current updated valuation or asset value of each of your investments, including Manganito?
Well, as I said, you know, we're not going to provide a sum of the parts valuation, but we believe that the business is trading at around half of the current valuation. If you put all these pieces together and there's no obvious taxes, that doesn't include the optionality of the rights that we have to these different technologies in different jurisdictions, which I think is the most valuable thing, nor does it include any valuation for the huge tax losses we've got. But I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and you know, I've just put up another couple of $1 million to invest in CoTec. So I would buy stock, and I am buying stock every day at the current market price.
His Fourth question is, in a recent interview, you mentioned that mining can be compared to the very early fintech stage, where technology can advance projects and economics. So how can something like the technology acquired via High Pro Mag and Magneto be used to scale globally? And what companies or markets would this be most effective towards?
So I think that is correct. I think that fintech is well established, but it's been going for 20 or 30 years. I think we are at the beginning stages of the development of a new category, which would be like mintech. And obviously, CoTec is about technology for commodity development. That's why we have our name. I think that we are also talking on the Hypermag and Magneto technologies to parties in Japan. I'm going to be in Tokyo on Tuesday, meeting with a number of major players there, talking about this. And we're also talking to players in the Middle East. So we definitely have that as an opportunity to scale globally wherever there's a large contained base of used magnets.
Great. Last question from him. What price target do you have on each of your investments in the next 5 years, and how will you get there?
Well, as I said, I think our investments have enormous potential. I think that Binding Solutions is in discussions with some major New York investment banks, ultimately to be sold, between $500 million and $1 billion. So I think that will be a great success. As I said, the Mag-Iron investment has an NPV of $1 billion, and we think that the Macango Magneto investment, again, if you can scale the plants, will be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So we just keep executing. The next investment we're looking at making, is at under $100 million valuation. The peers are trading at multi-billion-dollar valuations. And we just keep executing, but we're very excited about the potential.
Alani Burnett asks for you to talk about how you acquire stakes in technologies.
Well, as I said, we're pretty connected and networked. So all around the world, we meet people in the sector. There isn't at this stage a lot of competition for people investing in mining technologies. We're also starting a program to reach out to global research institutions and mining schools to see what technologies they've developed. And all these technologies need capital. So we come with capital, but also the ability to scale the technologies, to bring great advisors, to endorse the technology, to help them with their strategies, to introduce them to corporates. We're more than just a funder. We're really a facilitator and an incubator to the end of using the technologies to build a big asset base.
Another question from Alani. Alani wants
I'm speaking fast because I'm conscious of questions and time. Yes.
That's okay. Thank you. Alani wants you to clarify what apply new technology to assets means. Does it mean you make a new investment in the asset or raw material behind the technology?
So as I said, we're looking at taking technology and applying it to other assets in the commodity space, which aren't very valuable. So that's like waste, marginal mines, loss-making mines, mines on care and maintenance. They're not expensive. And the idea is to either license the technology to them, but own part of the upside, or even just buy the assets. So ultimately, we'd like to be an asset-rich operator using technology to make a lot of money for our shareholders.
Tobias Cole asks, which commodities are you focused on a percentage basis?
So as you can see, we're somewhat commodity agnostic, but we're trying to stay away from very crowded spaces. So we haven't done anything in lithium because there's lots of lithium technologies. It's difficult to work out which one's going to win. Similarly, with battery technologies, there's lots of those. We're sticking to iron ore, copper, steel, large categories where we can scale something which has a lot of value. But we are obviously interested in rare earths as well. We will look at nickel. Generally, it's base metals and bulk materials. We're not looking at precious.
And Rex wants to know, how are you currently capitalized? Do you need to go to the markets for a raise anytime soon?
Well, we will need to raise further capital. For the moment, we have no debt, and I personally, through my interests, are happily funding the business. But we will need to raise large amounts of capital, and it's likely, in part, to come from strategic investors. There are lots of the national funds, large pension plans, people in the Middle East who are super interested in what we're doing and understand their potential.
So the last question is from Yael Lucero. Yael wants you to talk about growth, talk about milestones, customer growth, sales. So where do you see all of this going over the next 12 months?
Well, I think we need to pivot the business model a little bit more. We'll still make some technology investments, and you should expect some announcements in the next couple of weeks and months. And there's going to be quite a lot of news flow, particularly as we announce our results from last year. But during the course of this year, we want to demonstrate more progress on the asset application of the technologies, the announcement of how we're going to build the asset base. And that, I think, is going to be the major milestone, which will allow us to generate revenues within 2 to 3 years.
Wonderful. Julian, do you have any closing remarks for our audience?
No, I'm just very gratified in the interest and the understanding of the potential. And as I said, we are very excited because we think this represents the future of mining and commodity extraction, and a way to give the world the commodities it needs to make progress on the energy transition.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. Please come back in the future with some updates.
We definitely will. Thank you for your time as well, Anna.
All right. Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back with our next presenter.